Hey, what's up, guys? It's Will back once again for some quick thoughts and some quick picks for UFC Sao Paulo. Jailton Almeida against Derek Lewis as our main event as the UFC venture back to Brazil. These cards are always a lot of fun. They always seem to have a lot of the Brazilian fighters come through. And actually, looking back over the years I've did the Brazilian cards, I always seem to struggle with the Brazilian cards, and I've no idea why that is. There's actually a card out there that I did. For the life of me, I can't remember who main evented it, but I think there was like 13 fights and I went like 1-12. So not great, but like I say, just putting out there that I've kind of struggled in the past with some of these Brazil cards, but it's what it is. Just made some silly picks, bad picks. But yeah, let's get into this one. I'm just going to give you some quick thoughts on the matchups that I watch. I didn't watch everything. I do have some bets for this card, but like I say, just some quick thoughts and some quick picks. Don't really want to kind of get too much into it. What's up, Jason? Nice to see you here. You're always, avid supporter of mine, so much appreciated. But let's get into this. So, Kari Fernandez against Mark Diakiese. I have a bet on Mark Diakiese. This is one of the ones I initially started watching a little bit ago when we had that little break. I was wondering, right, why did they sign this kid coming in Brazil, like not off the Contender Series? It's very rare that they really sign people outright nowadays, not unless it's a short notice opponent, but it wasn't even for that, I don't think. I think he's solid, but I just think this is a really good matchup for Diakiese if he implements the game plans that he can. Like I said, I was really high in Mark Diakiese back in the day, but he's really, like I said, I think he's got all the talent in the world. He just doesn't really show it, and he kind of fights down sometimes to where he puts himself in positions. I think he can. I don't think he's mentally all there. I think he can. I don't want to say he can quit himself, but I think he can doubt himself. And once a bit of adversity shows itself, he can put himself in a position to lose the fight. But Fernandez, decent striker. Initially, I thought he had a decent gas tank, and then I watched the fight with I think it was Lucas Sagari. I think it was. Started off great and then really faded and got dominated for the last 10 minutes, and that's the only loss he has in his record. Lovely knockout last time, and a knockout where they were in like boxing range, and he had a beautiful high kick that came out of nowhere and chinned the guy and knocked him out. But I think Mark Diakiese can wrestle this guy. I think he can strike, but I do feel that Mark's going to come out here and just want to I think he will grapple. I think he will see the disparity in that game where he can have multiple minutes of taking this guy down, having top time, get to side control, but he needs to land strikes. If he doesn't land strikes and he's kind of a little bit laboured with his attack, he could end up losing this off with how being on bottom if he decides to throw up some elbows or what be it. I think Mark's pretty much got him covered in a lot of aspects of this. I bet him at minus 138, and it's sitting exactly the same as I went back up to like minus 170. And then it moved. It's working its way back down as fight week kind of gets closer and the fight night gets closer. I think it's a tough fight for him to come into the UFC against Diakiese, but Diakiese really needs to jump back into a win streak here, try and get some of that confidence, because when he's on, he's actually a pretty decent fighter, and he's lost to some relatively good guys. If we're looking at losses here, Joel Alvarez, I thought he was doing well against him there, but then obviously kind of checked out himself once he kind of got, I think it was a head clash. Michael Johnson, I know his record's deceiving there, but he can beat good guys. Rafael Alves wins over Borralho and Hadzovic. They're guys I think he should be beating. To keep it quite quick here, I think Mark Diakiese wins via a decision in that one there. Montserrat Ruiz against Eduardo Moura. I think Eduardo Moura wins this fairly convincingly. I don't think Montserrat is long for the UFC. But when you're looking at Eduardo Moura, she's not been a pro a hell of a lot. She's not been like fighting a hell of a long time, like a couple of years. And she's got like a 9-0 record winning the Contender Series. If you look throughout her record, you can see that she likes to make her way to the back. I think that Montserrat is just too small, and I don't think she's overly great. So I think this is a spot where Eduardo comes out here, really just puts it on her and gets a stoppage in the first couple of rounds. And I think that could be like one of these submissions she could find a way to her back again. I think I'll get a fifth or sixth, I think, win via rear naked choke. I think she can do that. But yeah, she should roll on here and win that one. Angela Hill against Denise Gomes. Now, this is one, when we had this little break, I looked at the kind of betting line a little bit, and I've kind of refrained from that a little bit this year, where I've looked at the betting line and thought, right, that line shouldn't be like that, and just jumped on something. Um, but this fight, as it's getting closer, my opinion's kind of changing a little bit. Where initially I was on Hill. She's a tough out, and this is a big step up, in my opinion, from what Denise Gomes has faced. But I mean, these are a couple of quality wins. Bruna Brazil, I don't think she's on the level of what Yasmin Haragui is going to be, but she's shown she can hurt girls and she can put people out. Where you look at this 15-13 record, a lot. I think I heard a stat maybe from Half the Battle that she's got the most losses in the UFC. Shout out to Dan over there, which was kind of crazy. I never even thought of that, but she has faced a high caliber opposition. Dern, Dakota's quite solid as well. Lupe's solid. She fights next week. Verna can be a hard style matchup, as can Amanda Lemos. And the bet line was coming down. Once it kind of left plus 120, I really didn't want to really bet the plus 110. And like I said, this fight week's been going on. I've been looking into Denise Gomes a little bit. And I actually think she might turn out to be quite decent. But this is a big step up where that if she can't maybe get ahead of what Andrea Hill and maybe hurt her a little bit, she might struggle in the scorecards. But I'm gonna lean on Denise Gomez side a little bit as well. I've seen that she won that. I think she won some bonuses. She's getting tattoos on the neck. She's getting all sorts of different things. So maybe the blonde hair's come out as well. So maybe that's went ahead a little bit. But I think this could be a close fight. I'm going to pick Denise Gomes via decision in this one. But like I say, the initial lean was Angie Hill, but I'm not going to jump on that. As a pick, I'm going to pick Denise Gomes. Vitor Petrino against Modestas Bukauskas. I'm seeing a little bit of love out there for Modestas this week. I really like Vitor Petrino. I remember watching him before he came into the UFC. He fought Gadzhimurov Antigulov. I think it was over in UAE Warriors. I can't remember what the number card, but I remember seeing him and thought, this guy's got some stuff he can work behind. And he came in, I mean, he showed some spots against Tarkali where he can be taken down, he can be controlled a little bit, but the guy, it's got massive power, destructive power that can really hurt guys, and he can grapple a little bit as well. Bukauskas, solid overall pro. I don't think he's overly dangerous, but I think he could, if he doesn't avoid the kind of big shots and doesn't get hit with the big shots initially, I think he could work his way into the fight as the fight goes on. But for me, I think Vitor is going to land a power shot on him and really hurt him. I think he's going to compromise him early. So Vitor Petrino for me via knockout in the first 2 rounds is kind of where I'm leaning on that one. But this could be a fight, like I say, Modestas could really come into late on. I just don't know whether he's got the firepower to really hurt Vitor and maybe come out there and maybe win a decision. But like I say, I'll lean with Vitor Petrino on that one there. Daniel Marcos, Victor Hugo. Like what I see from Victor, but I think this Daniel Marcos guy is actually, I think he could turn out to be a pretty decent prospect. 15-0, coming off a win against Davy Grant. I kind of still, I think Grant was a little bit unlucky in that one, but I'm not on the side of where like Marcos robbed this guy. I don't see that at all. I think it was a very close fight. Initially when I watched it, I thought Grant won. When I went back and watched it, I thought, yeah, Marcos getting that decision is not as big a robbery or whatever as people are saying. So, and I I think he's got a great jab, like really good striking, good length to him. Really like what I'm seeing from him. I think he's moved himself over to America, got himself a decent camp out there. Hugo to me is a little bit sober bust, will go for things. I think he's coming in here fairly short notice as well. So I'm interested to see kind of how he looks, whether he makes the weight okay, what he looks like on the scales. But he's got a lot of wins in his record, grabbing heel hooks, leg locks, you name it. He's one of these guys that kind of can go all in and attack those leg positions, and solid overall striker as well. But he is going to be facing, I think, a really sound, solid guy here in Daniel Marcos, where I think a TKO in the last couple of rounds could become a factor for him, if not decision. So I lean on the side of Daniel Marcos to move to 16-0 here. I think Victor Hugo will come in and he will win fights in the UFC. I think he's got some stuff there that that will win in fights if he's matched up properly. But for me, I'm leaning on the Daniel Marcos side in this one here. Oh, this is a great fight. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos against Rinat Fakhretdinov. I'm picking Fakhretdinov, but I think that Elizeu can maybe give him some spots of caution in this fight. But from what we've seen from Rinat in his UFC tenure, it's been dominance. Submission of Kevin Lee. Now, you can't really take too much away because I think Kevin Lee is shot, which should never really come back to the UFC. Brian Batt, I think that's a good win. It's always going to look good in his record. I believe that Brian came in here fairly short notice, but I could be wrong. And then that win over Michailidis. So he's looked very, very strong with his grappling, shoots a good double leg takedown. Doesn't really seem to have much outside of that, but he has good top pressure, good control, does enough to kind of land in positions down there. And I think he's overall shown fairly decent striking, although most of the time it's been through his grappling and his dominance with his grappling. He's not really get hit with anything and he's not really faced much adversity. I think he will get a little bit of that from Zaleski dos Santos because he's a very solid overall fighter, a guy who's getting on. I think he's 38, 39 years old. Super dangerous, can knock you out with spinning attacks. Capoeira is his nickname that he has. But for me, I just think that he's going to fade later on in this fight. I think he's going to be against it from the get-go. I think Rinat will initially look to engage in the feet a little bit, and then he'll realise I can grapple this guy. Mind your P's and Q's down there, because I think Zaleski has got some skills where he might be able to throw stuff up. But I think the control and just the ringmanship from Rinat Fakhretdinov is going to be enough here to win. I think a submission could be live late on, but more likely ends the decision. I've got him parlayed up with someone further on in the card as well. So Fakhretdinov for the win there. Elvis Brener against Kenan Krzyzewski. Like I say, I'm not the biggest Dana White contender guy. I don't watch the show just because of Tuesday work and everything. So going back and watching some of these fighters, and I believe he's coming in super short notice. I was going to bet Esteban Ribovics in the fight against Brener here. I thought that Ribovics just doesn't stop, and he comes forward with big strikes. He just doesn't stop, and I love that in fighters. He's coming off the couch here on probably less than a week's notice in Brazil, coming off a fight a month ago. So this is a quick turnaround for himself here. Elvis Brener had himself a great 2023 with wins over Zubaira Tuhugov. Very, very close fight. Got the split nod there. And then knocking out Guram Kutateladze, who everyone loved Guram. I was never the biggest fan of his. But that's a good win to have on your resume. And especially with a stoppage, a brutal stoppage as well. I lean on the Brener side. I've not looked into a hell of a lot from Krzyzewski. I believe he's pretty solid with his submissions. But overall, it's a fairly decent guy to kind of come into the UFC here. Not looked into a hell of a much. I'm leaning on the Brener side. It will be no bet if it was to come below this 160. But I think it's like minus 190 over here in the UK. Don't really fancy that. But Brener's going to be the pick. Ismail Bonfim against Vince Pichel. I think this is a good bounce back fight for Ismail against the guy in Vince Pichel, who is definitely going to be at the later part of his career. Very, very dangerous back years ago. Hard guy to really go in there and face. He brought a lot to the table there, a lot of intensity, a lot of ability. Hard-nosed guy and a hard guy to really put out. But he's at that later stage of his career now where I think that a Bonfim with his overall boxing, MMA boxing, and just speed, shot selection is going to be a little bit too much. I mean, this loss here to Benoit Saint Denis is not a bad loss at all, because Benoit is an absolute terminator. He was a guy that I was a little bit low on, but I've watched him fight a few times live, and the guy is unreal. He's huge for the weight class, and he doesn't stop. Like I say, a terminator. Really, really tough guy to see. So I think he bounces back here. I think the knockout is... there's a chance that he could catch Vince with something clean and hurt him. I think that's going to be the way he wins this fight. I think he knocks him out at some point. So Ismail Bonfim for the win there. Moving on. Adolfo Vieira against Armin Petrosian. Funnily enough, this was one I looked at last week, and I seen the dog odds on Adolfo Vieira, and funnily enough, it's still at the same odds. Like, I think it was plus 105. I think you can get like plus 100. So barely plus money. It's a pick 'em. And it's really how you see this fight go. And I tried to fade Armin Petrosian last time out against Christian Leroy Duncan. I'm a believer in Christian Leroy Duncan, but he just didn't throw anything in that fight. And Armin overall is a really sound, solid striker. I probably should have seen that coming. But hey, I had the blinkers on maybe because I'm a big fan of Christian Leroy Duncan. But I'm leaning on the Vieira side here. I think he has to get it done early. And I think that he could. I think this will be a big thing for him fighting back in Brazil. The black belt hunter, former multiple-time world jiu-jitsu champion. I think this will be a big, big thing for him to get a win here. And it's all about getting the guy to the ground, because if he does, I think that he will keep Armin there for majority of the fight. I think he will work for submissions, and I think eventually he will find one. But if he doesn't, I don't think his striking's adequate enough to really stick around with someone like Petrosian, who will throw multiple kicks, good combination of punches. I think Vieira's got a decent jab; he can throw that out there. But if he can't get Petrosian down, we've seen him. I can't remember what fight, maybe Chris Curtis. He was attempting takedowns and just wasn't getting them. But you could kind of see them coming from a ways away. I don't think if Vieira was to throw in 18 to 20 takedown attempts like he did against Curtis, I think he'd definitely get Petrosian down more than he would Curtis, and I think they would have more opportunities to sub Curtis Petrosian than he would Curtis. So I'm leaning on the Vieira side here, and I'm going to pick him via a submission in round number 1. I just think he gets him down and he finds a way to get a submission, whatever it be, a choke, whatever it may be. Like I said, I think he finds a submission. So Adolfo Vieira, round 1 submission for me there. Kyle Borralho against Abus Magomedov. This is another part of the parlay that I made. I've got Borralho with Rinat Fakhretdinov. I've got both at minus 275 for, I think it's minus 116, I want to say it is. I like that parlay. Abus Magomedov is a guy, like I said, I've known about Abus for a very, very, very long time, and I've never really been super impressed. And I think he absolutely shut the bed last time out. It's like, for you to gas out that bad in a projected 5-round fight, it's just not a good look. Sorry, I think my little boy was just crying there for a second. So yeah, like I say, I think I am going to pick Borralho. I think he's just overall just a better fighter in many aspects of the fight game, and I just think that his IQ is better than what Magomedov is. I think Abus will come out. I don't think he'll push himself as much as he did. Oh, guys, I might have to cut this short. I'm so sorry. I think my little boy's crying. So, guys, I'm going to give him my last picks here. I'm so sorry. Kyle Borralho. I'm taking Nascimento. I'm taking Bonfim. And I'm taking... Is he stopped? I think he stopped. I think we've stopped. I think we're okay. I'll go back to Borralho here. I just think that he will fight at distance, will get the takedowns. No, he's definitely not stopped. Right, guys, I'm sorry. I'm really going to have to cut this short. Borralho is my last pick. Nascimento. I think that he's just got a little bit too much for Dante Almeida. Gabriel Bonfim. I think, even though I don't like his betting line, I think Dalby will initially give him a fight, but I just think he's got a little bit too much firepower. And then Jailton Almeida will get the takedown. And I'm so sorry, guys. Jailton Almeida, I think, will get the takedown, and he will eventually just find a submission there. So, guys, I am so sorry. Have to get this out the road, but I need to go and see what my wee boy's crying about. Take care. All the best. Enjoy the fights with the crown. I'll see you next week for UFC 295.